From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Lehman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Wednesday night on News Channel 5 Plus. Big couple of days in sports conversation around here. Not as big as obviously we've had over the last month or so as the Preds made the run to the Stanley Cup final. But the Predators cleaning out lockers yesterday. General Manager David Poile, head coach Peter Laviolette talking with the media today, kind of in their annual season wrap-up. This time after the best postseason run in team history. Some interesting stuff came out of that meeting today. First off, both of them talked about how great the run was, how wonderful it was to be a part of it within this city. Peter Laviolette said, particularly, he just feels blessed and honored to be able to be a part of this organization and to be a part of this run. And I think that's how a lot of people in the organization, frankly, a lot of the fans, I think, feel about what we just saw over the last couple of months. It was just fun. And yeah, it ended up a couple wins shy of the ultimate goal, but I don't think anybody's going to forget the spring of 2017 when the Predators just made the entire world take notice of what's going on here in the city of Nashville and how well we respond to things like that and how good of a party we throw. All of those things were just front and center during this run, and it was a blast. I think I've said it before on this show, but I'll say it again. There's something about the Stanley Cup playoff format that fits this town, that likes to have a good time, likes to have a party very, very well. It's an every other night kind of format for 2 months if you go deep. And this was really the first time where Nashville got to experience that. The deepest run before this year was last year when they got to the second round of the playoffs. And all you got there were 3 home games. And because they were playing Anaheim and San Jose at that point, so many of the games out on the West Coast were really, really late and not conducive to having watch parties or even staying up at home and watching and getting into it. This year, you played the Central Division foes in Chicago and St. Louis. Then you get Anaheim in the Western Conference Final, and it just grows and grows, and each game gets bigger, and each party gets bigger for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we saw that this year. But Nashville's kind of perfect for that. For saying, okay, it's playoff time. Let's ramp it up. All right, it's a home game. Let's ramp it up. All right, it's round 2. Let's ramp it on and on and on and on until we got to the Stanley Cup final when all of the eyes of the hockey world were watching, and they were watching Nashville. And their jaws were collectively dropping based off of what they were seeing in the arena, outside at the watch parties, these concerts, Luke Bryan singing on top of Tootsies on Sunday night. It was just fantastic all the way through. And what a scene it was. And both Peter Laviolette and David Poile and the players yesterday said as much. It's just, I've never had this much fun being around hockey before. And that's huge for this organization. Several of the guys, and David Poile said it again today, what kind of a recruiting tool has the last 2 months been for the Predators? Think about that for a second. There was a while there when there was a knock on Nashville that it's not really a hockey city, or they don't have the resources necessarily to pour into that to really be a contender. So if you're a free agent, why would you want to go there? I mean, think about it. Last spring, Jimmy Vesey, who was one of the team's top prospects, Hobey Baker Award winner in college hockey, he gets done at Harvard. The Predators are trying to sign him to bring him up immediately and have them on their playoff roster a year ago. And he and his camp elected to not sign, let his amateur eligibility expire, so to speak, under the NHL rules, and become a free agent in August when he could sign with anybody. He elected to not come to Nashville and play in the playoffs immediately so he could pick somewhere else to go. That was just a year ago. Now, that was one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen, and it played out to be that way this year. I think a lot of Predators fans probably sitting back and watching right now. He wanted, and his camp wanted, a place where he had a better chance to win the Cup and a place where he would be in a bigger market where he would get more attention and sort of be better for his brand. Since he did that, the Predators got probably the biggest brand in all of hockey in PK Subban, who seems to be doing just fine here in Nashville. They made the deepest run in playoff history, getting to the final, and now everybody in the hockey world thinks this place is awesome based off of what they saw during this run. I wonder what Jimmy Vesey thinks now. But more importantly than that, it's what do other people around the NHL, what do other free agents think now about Nashville? And I think the answer to that question is, dang, that looks like a lot of fun. Is it always like that? Is Nashville that cool? You know, I think there are a lot of people whose eyes were open and others who thought, that'd be cool, but how is it? And then they saw this, and they've never seen anything like it before. I think now Nashville's going to be a really attractive place for free agents moving forward because it's now proven that it can make that deep run, that it can get to a Stanley Cup final and come that close to hoisting Lord Stanley's Cup. But also, it's shown that it's got the best arena environment in the game. It's got the best out-of-arena environment in the game. And a great city to boot. I think you're going to see a lot of free agents take an interest in Nashville that maybe didn't have an interest in the Predators before, and that can only help David Poile's job and this team put together more runs like this. Some other notes that came out of today. Poile said that he is not going to rush Mike Fisher in any way, shape, or form. The captain turned 37 just about a week or so ago. He's almost certainly going to mull retirement this summer. He loves the game of hockey, and he loves being around the guys. So it's a little bit hard for me to see him when he's so able-bodied and this team's coming back and he's got the responsibility of the captain. He told me the other day, and we might play this coming up for you, he said he's never learned more in a season than he did this year when he had that captaincy on the sweater and having to deal with some of the ups and downs of this year's team. It's a little hard for me to imagine that after that and after this run that a healthy guy like him is going to say, nope, I'm done. Don't want to do this again. But it's a possibility. So the Predators are going to let him sit back and make his decision on what he wants to do. But they're also going to work very quickly on the roster for next year. Ryan Johansson, Victor Arvidsson, two top-line guys, both are going to be restricted free agents. General Manager David Poile would love to get those guys locked up sooner rather than later. Long-term deals. I mean, that top line with those two and Philip Forsberg was the best top line the Predators have ever had. And they matched up well with a lot of teams throughout the league. So they want to lock those guys up immediately. The other order of business for Poile is deciding who the Predators are going to protect in the expansion draft, which comes up next week. They've got to put in that protection list this weekend. Now, it's clear they have to protect Pekka Rinne. Not that you wouldn't anyway, but he's got a no-movement clause. So he's getting protected. You don't have to worry about UC Saros because he doesn't have enough time in the league. But the Preds have also said, Poile said it today, that he is going to protect the team's top four defensemen. PK Subban, Matthias Ekholm, Ryan Ellis, Roman Josi. So those guys are going to get protected, which means you can only protect 4 more skaters when that's your way of operating. So, who do you protect of the forwards? You're going to protect Philip Forsberg, you're going to protect Ryan Johansson, you're going to protect Victor Arvidsson. Those guys are getting protection. That leaves you one spot for everybody else. James Neal, assistant captain. He's a likely guy. Calle Jarnkrok, though, incredibly versatile. He's a top 9 center for you. Do you want to lose that? Guy that can also play on the wing, Colin Wilson, been a valuable member of this team in postseasons past. Craig Smith, valuable member of this team for quite a little while. Other people as well. Now, some of them you don't have to worry about, like Kevin Fiala doesn't have enough time in the books. Freddie Gaudreau doesn't have enough time in the books. He's a guy that's going to have to fight for time up here next year. But Colton Sissons, I also don't think has enough time in the books. But you're going to have to make a decision. And as Boyle said today, whoever they take, they're going to get a good player from the Predators roster. And we're going to lose a good player. That's just the nature of the expansion deal. To me, the biggest question mark is, do you go Calle Jarnkrok because he's a center and he can do so many things for you? Or do you go James Neal because he's an assistant captain and a more prolific goal-scoring threat? It's an interesting question. If you've got thoughts on that tonight, 737-7767 is the number. We would love to hear from you, and we will start things off with the phone call right now. Let's go to James. James, good evening.
I just want to say, that I think we got a damn good chance next year of getting the Stanley Cup. It's just like 2000 Titans went to the Super Bowl and they went to the 1 yard line and they lost. It's just like, the Nashville is changing. It's changing since I grew up. I grew up hanging down around town. We got that arena. We got all these hotels coming up. Everything's changing in Nashville since I was a little kid. I was 5 years old and I could hang out in Printer's Alley, and there wasn't nobody mess with me. But, nowadays everything's changing. The Predators, they went to the Stanley Cup. Next year, watch out for next year. Like I'm saying, Titans next year and everything. Titans is going to have a damn good run next year. Mariota stays healthy, and, but the hockey is over with, but, and we got the football season looking forward to. We're going to go to the Super Bowl, and we're going to win it.
All right, James, I appreciate that, and I think a lot of people appreciate your optimism. There is a lot to look forward to when you're talking about the Titans and the Predators right now. Specifically, the Predators obviously can build off of this run, but another thing both Poyle and Laviolette said today is you have to be careful of assuming that just because you make one run, you're going to make another. You brought up the Titans as an example. They got to that Super Bowl 34, first year in the Coliseum at the time. What a magical run it was. And I think a lot of people thought with that core coming back that, oh, this is going to happen again and again. This is going to be a team that is constantly competing in the AFC. And while they had several good teams there, they never made it back that deep again in the playoffs. And so there is no given, there is no guarantee that you're going to make a run again. And that's one of the things that they have to work on in now what is the shortest offseason in team history, is they've got to get guys healthy. They've got to get them back going in the fall. And they have to keep them with the same level of hunger that just because you got there last year, you still have to put in the work here in October and November and December and all that to give yourself a chance to get back and do that again. The experience is great. It helps in a big way. It gives you the confidence, and it gives you just that, how much more difficult it is each round you move along in the playoffs. But at the same time, you've got to do the work again. You got to win those regular season games to get in. Hopefully, not as the last team in the playoffs. You've got to win the 4 games in round 1 again, in round 2. You got to keep building and building and building, and ultimately it takes 16. So that's a real challenge for the Preds, is understanding as great as this was, this wins you nothing next year on itself. You got to win those games on your own. A couple other notes from today, or I'll give you one note. Phil Housley, assistant coach, great assistant coach for the Predators. He's a top candidate for the Buffalo Sabres head coaching job. The Preds would not talk about it today. That's not how they operate in dealing with assistants who might be moving on or taking a job, and that's understandable. But that is another potential defection, another potential change for this team. And Phil Housley's done a terrific job with that defensive core. You're talking about a Hall of Fame player with a wide knowledge base, and he's done a great job in building them up and creating essentially the best 4 defensemen in the league, top 2 lines in the league. And that's been huge for the Preds over the past couple of years. Some more news coming out today. We know hockey players are tough, but some of the injuries these guys are playing with will astound you. We'll get to that, plus hear from some of the guys coming up on the other side of the break, plus phone calls as well, 737-7767. Gotta take a break. This is SportsLine on News Channel 5+.